All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, creatives and artists of all ages, to NAB NYC 2023. I'm Matthias Omatola, aka Major VFX on all the socials, and I am accompanied by amazing artists showcasing how they're using Maxon 1 within their creative workflow. For many of you have seen me, I've been on tour all year at the DAT Tour, the Design Animation Tour, and that is actually on its way to Europe next month, everyone. So Go To Dat is the actual website if you want to see us and our crew at the upcoming shows in Europe. It's GOTODAT. Go To Dat, and we will see you there throughout Europe. So up next, a longtime educator, good friend, and amazing all-around artist. Let's give a big round of applause to Eran Stern. There we go.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Matthias, and thank you, Maxon. So typical. I worked on this title, and then I found out there is a typo here. So we're not going to do composing, we're going to do compositing. But I didn't have enough time to fix it. Anyhow, my name is Eran. I'm doing motion design and content creation for the last, 30 years. Dating Cinema 4D as well as After Effects for many years, still not ready to propose. Before I start, I'm here with you, but my mind is with my family in Israel. And I'm going to use your help to disconnect for the next hour or so and talk about explosions and stuff inside the computer and not in real life. No, we're not going to do explosions. We're going to do something totally different. So in 2 words, I'm an After Effects guy. I'm doing a lot of stuff, but I guess, most of the time I'm watching progress bars and stuff like this. And here's like a short clip of what we're going to create in the next probably 45 to 50 minutes. So here we go, the Dragon's Den. This is without an audio for unknown reasons, so I'm just going to give you the narration, and that's it, it's done. It looks simple, but it's not as simple as you may think. So here is a lift brief, not an elevator, because I'm from the UK. In this session, you will learn how to import and composite 3D objects using Red Giant tools. In other words, I'll show you some things that you can do using basically Cinema 4D as a plugin for After Effects, how you can bake the animation, how you can, instead of just, I have a topic list. So we're going to start by baking an animated 3D models in Cinema 4D, which is a necessary step if you want to use Mir. Now, Mir is a very capable plugin which can do a lot of stuff for you very elegantly, and I'll demonstrate what I'm talking about in a few minutes. I'll show you how to import and texture those 3D models inside, as well as how to use After Effects lights to basically light, texture, and add some reflections. And then we're going to do a different angle of 3D titles using DAO. So another tool from the Red Giant Trapcode family or category. We'll use VFX reflection to add reflections. So I'm just, telling you everything that I'm going to do. It's just, stealing my own thunder. At the end, we are going to do some comping with Supercomp, which is another great tool that you must use, a mandatory tool. I forced you to use it. And we'll finalize with some post effects. So basically, these are my slides. I'll hide Keynote, and I'm going to start by showing you the clip, which is going to be based, most of my presentation is going to be based upon this clip. So if you want to download it, you need to memorize the number here, or you can just use Adobe Stock and look for the name. So I'll switch to After Effects, where I already have this clip ready in a composition that I prepared while you weren't paying attention. And the only thing that I did is I reversed it. So instead of going outside of this cave, we're going into the cave. And this is because, as you saw before, I want to bring a 3D dragon flying inside. All right, so I'll escape out of full screen and show you that over here, if I'll select this composition and go to the effect controls, I already applied the 3D camera tracker effect, which is some sort of a black box inside After Effects. You go to the animation menu, you choose track camera, you wait a few moments, and then it's going to solve it for you. Meaning that now I can click on Create Camera, And everything that I'm going to place in this 3D scene is going to respond to the vanishing point of the camera. So for example, I already have this title over here, which is just a regular text. For those of you who are interested, this is Mr. Darcy, the name of the font, the bold version, of course. And because it is part of the 3D scene, it's now a 3D card, or 3D card in this case in space. We also see that there are a few lights here. I'm going to return to them in a moment. But I want to bring the star of the show right now. So I want to go and hunt for a dragon. And if you don't get my jokes, it's totally fine. I have a very dry sense of humor. Make sure to stay hydrated. All right, this is just an example. There are going to be so many dead jokes here. Oh, you're going to hate me at the end. But for now, I'm just going to show you where I got the dragon model from. So this is from Sketchfab, and I guess the name of the guy is Al Diesel, or something along those lines. And you can just download it for free. And at the end of the presentation, I'll give you some links. So if you want, you will have everything written down for you. I'll switch to my favorite tool in the world, which is Cinema 4D. So already I have this model opened in Cinema 4D. So again, we can use this little playhead, or play, I guess. See the playhead. And this is the character rig-based dragon or animation. And the problem is that if we want to bring this into After Effects, we actually need to remove all the rigging and bake the keyframe, or actually keyframes in this case, to a point level animation keyframes. Otherwise, we won't be able to do this. So there are a few ways to work here. One way is, of course, to go to the File menu, choose Export, and then export, an OBJ sequence. Now, I'm all for this if you have plugins that can work with OBJ sequences. The problem is that we need to handle, in this case, probably more than 300 files, as you can see, because each frame is going to get its own 3D file, and then we need to re-import them and manage the entire thing. There is a better way or an alternative way to work, and this is using Mir. So we need to prepare the file so Mir can read it. And what I'll do here, and just again, just to show you, this is the splines. If I select the object, I've got this character rig with all of the things that are coming or were coming with the model. So I need to find a way to do this. And I need to thank also Noseman, which is the Wikipedia guy for everything concerning Cinema 4D. So every time I got stuck, I'm calling Thanasis, and he's always there for me. And now, through me, is helping you. So this is what you need to do. You need to actually bake these keyframes. So I'll right-click on it, and I'll start to actually type, and this is something really cool. You can just start to type if you know what you're after. I want to create a cache point, so I'll start to type cache, and then I'll grab the point cache, which is a tag, and of course you can look for it if you know where it is, but I don't care. I just want to cache the thing. So I'll go to the beginning, and this is very important because I need to store the cache from the first frame. I'll click on Store Cache, and then I'll need to calculate. So Cinema 4D basically is baking everything over here, and now by the end of this, it will look very, very scary, because what we have now is double the action. We have the point cache animation as well as the character rig. And this is basically redundant now. So I can remove this, and it's not enough, because everything is just part of this caching tag. We actually need to bake it so every single keyframe is going to have this point level animation. And to do this, you need to click on this diamond key, or the diamond, I don't know, timeline dope sheet. This is what we are going to see. And then just drag the model. Let me just make a bit more room here, so it will be easier for me to work. So now I have the object over here. You can see no keyframes. This is still using the point cache. So I'll need to go to the function menu, and then, is it the function menu? I think it is. Bake objects, it is. And over here, I need to just tell it what I want. So I'm going to skip the create copy, and I don't need position and scale and rotation. The only thing which I'm after is actually this PLA. You can add other stuff if you want, but in my case, and in your case, if you want to use Mir, this should be enough. I'll click OK. I'll let the baking begin. And right now we can see that we now have keyframes for each and every frame, meaning that we can say goodbye to actually this model, and the rig is gone now. You can see that it still flies. so we can actually use this and bring it to After Effects. So this is the preparation stage. I know I'm not even started, but it took me almost like 10 minutes, but it is important. And this is almost like a recipe. So every time you have something which is moving inside Cinema 4D and you're uncertain and you want to bring it as a single file to After Effects, you need to follow this. However, there is one more step. I'm just going to hide the timeline. We don't need to look at it right now. And this is very important. You need to save the project for Cineware, because Cineware is basically the bridge which connects all these things together. So you have Cineware for other applications, not only for After Effects, and this is going to help us bring the stuff into Mir. So you need to follow this, and then you need to place it wherever you want. So I'm just going to go to my favorite place in the world, which is the desktop. This is my folder. I can dig in as far as I want. I actually have this file over here, so I can, just replace it. Or I'm just going to cancel out. I don't want to bore you with render stuff and, saving stuff over here. So here inside the project panel, I'll bring a Finder window over here, and I'll drag this Dragon dot, actually, in parentheses, Cineware.c4d to the project panel. I also want to drag the material, which is something that I'm getting for free after doing this export. So this is part of the Cineware thing that we did. So it's actually going to give you the materials that you are using. In my case, it's a normal as well as a diffuse material. I'm only going to use the diffuse in this case. All right, makes sense? Hopefully, yes. You are not responsive, so I'm going to assume you either get everything or you don't get nothing. But I got a thumbs up from one guy, and over the internet, I'm sure that you are getting me. So, hello. Okay, so we are going to just select those two guys here, drag and drop them to the timeline, which is automatically going to enable the Cineware effect, and believe it or not, I'll switch off the visibility for them. These are just going to be a utility layers, meaning I'll use them as a source for something else, which I'm going to create right now by pressing Command Y. This is the shortcut for a new solid. Make sure it is set to comp size. You can choose, this is where you get to be creative, any color you like, because it's going to disappear in a moment. So now, after this very long build-up, I'll go to Effect, Trap Code, and apply Mir version 3. And Mir is a 3D aware effect, so it reads the vanishing point of the camera. You can see by this little cube here. And if I'll drag the timeline, you can see that we have something, not something excited, but something to report home about. However, excuse me. Oh, After Effects, where did you go? I'll open up the geometry options, and instead of this base geometry, I'll switch it to 3D model. And now, under the 3D model settings, I need to tell it to use this dragon that I just exported out of Cinema. And here we have this dragon, and we can also check it is flying. It's very small, so let's go to the size and double the size by typing in 1000. I know you are surprised. Now, I'm going to also dress this guy by going to the texture options, and over here I can set the texture layer. So because I've got the UV mapped texture, automatically export using this Cineware service that I did previously from Cinema, I can just tell it to use this image as a texture. Now, the dragon right now is obeying the 3D environment because, again, Mir is a 3D effect or enabled, so you don't need to change the layer itself. But you can, there's like two ways to work, or at least two ways. One way to work is to create a null object, and if I'll click it, it will create this null which controls the dragon from the timeline. So I can use the 3D gizmo, this is the official name of it, by the way, and I can animate it however I like. But since I have a sixth sense when it comes to this project, and I know that it's not too complicated, I'm actually going to use instead, so I undo a few times, the position and rotation properties under the geometry of Mir. So I'll start by creating a keyframe at the beginning, or at the beginning over here. I'll set a position keyframe, and I happen to know that I want to take this dragon and make it fly from above the screen. So just to make things a little bit more fast, I'll type in -960, press tab to go to the Z and then type in 700. So hopefully you can see it's over here. Then I'll go to the middle of my composition. It's also your composition as well because you are now with me. So our composition, and then I'll plug in some different values. So for the Y, this wants to be 75, and the Z or Z or Zod, if you're coming from DC Comics, is negative 1300. And then I'll go to the end. So this already looks very scary. But then again, I'll go to the end, and I'm going to leave the X as is. I'm going to lower this guy to maybe 30, and I want the dragon to pass by us. So I'll need to take this value and just drag it. And you can drag it until you run out of the table room, or you can also add shift and drag it faster. So this is going to multiply your mouse by 10. So something along those lines, I guess, will work. And I just want to show you, this is not cached yet, but in the recent versions of After Effects, if you are not going to do anything, so I'll leave After Effects idle for like 8 seconds or so. So look, no hands. It's starting to cache automatically for me. So if I'm grabbing a coffee, tea, or whatever you are drinking, once you get back to the table, and this is why I like to use the mirror combination, it's already ready for you to start exploring it. And again, I think this is a very elegant way to work because we are only dealing with one file, and this file is still connected to Cinema. So if I need to do any amendments or change it, I can open the original, and I can do everything, and it's going to ripple through this composition. So hopefully you are with me here. I want to change, let's say, the rotate X. Let's go with 18, so it will do a little bit of an interesting number flying towards us. And I can animate other stuff. For example, rotate Y really wants to be -4 in this case. And again, I have some experience with it, so forgive me for just typing stuff. I arrived to those values by trial and error. So, you can do whatever you want here. All right, so let's just pause over here. And before we will continue, I'll close the things that I finished working with. I'll press Command S. This is a great keyboard shortcut, by the way. And then I can, I'll just enable the lighting because, again, this is a live 3D object that responds to light. And this is why I didn't want to bake it as something else or render the thing. Now, because I'm adding 3 lights are additive, it looks a little bit strange here. So we actually need to work on the material. I'll open up the material, and I want to call your attention to the fact that you have many presets to choose from. So you can, for example, use this really lovely wireframe look, which is going to be very difficult to achieve otherwise, unless you are 3D professional. And also check up the other stuff. Oh, I hate those things. So settings, general, and I'm going to tell After Effects not to show me coach marks. I can coach After Effects. I don't want it to coach me. Anyhow, we can use a lot of presets here. I'm going to just return to the default one, and I'll just fiddle with a few of the settings here. So first, I think I'm going to, let's see, take away the shininess. So the specular, I'll set it to 0, as well as the shininess over here. And of course, I can also play with the diffuse to make it darker or brighter. But before doing so, I want to also call your attention to the fact that we can make stuff reflect on this object. So this is the reflection and lighting. By default, it wants to use this built-in desert horizon, but we can tell it, use a custom layer. And by custom, I can actually tell it to use the footage that I'm using over here. So if I'll take the reflectivity and work with it, it's now reflecting the water. Now, this is a very strange dragon. Most of the dragons are not so reflective. I just want to call your attention to the fact that we can do it. So I'll set the reflection roll-off all the way to 100. I can play with their reflection sharpness. But, the idea here is that you can make this very realistic without going back and forth between 2D and 3D until you arrive to the place that you are happy with what you are seeing. Now, I'm also here to tell you that by default, it won't render the final quality. You can see it's really fast, so I can already start to see it's almost like a game machine, which is crazy. But if you are satisfied with what you achieved, then do me a favor, open up the rendering section and change the super sample to at least 16 times. And this is going to make sure that everything looks as best as it could be. And of course, you can go even higher than that. So basically, under the hood, what it does, it scales up the object and then scales it down to create a much more nicer render without, or flicker-free render. Let's just call it like this. And you can see it doesn't really harm the performance. All right, so far, so good. Now, I want to convert this title that I've created, which is currently a card in 3D space, to 3D title. And I want to do something that hopefully you haven't seen before. So what I'll do is I'll go to the beginning, because now I can see the layer. And I'm going to use DAO to create the titles. Now, in order to use DAO, I actually need to feed the plugin with masks, or lights, or some built-in polygon. So the first move that I'll do here is right-click on the layer, and from the Create options, I'll choose Create Masks from Text, which is very difficult for me to pronounce. Masks. Anyhow, so this is it. I'll name it, for the purpose of this, to even 3 letters I can't spell. Look at me. So DAO. And then just to show you what we got, I'll temporarily convert this layer to 3D. So we can see we have those masks automatically generated for us. So this is now something that I can feed into the DAO plugin. So I'll select the layer, and then under Effect, Trap Code, I'll apply DAO. I know it looks strange, so let's just move our cursor so we can see something more meaningful. And I'm also going to, you know what, I'll just leave it like this, it's good. But I will open the path generator, tick it off, because I don't need to see any path. I'm not interested in creating something from light, so I'll switch this guy also off. And this is what I'm using. So you can see that by default, it will take under account all the masks, and all the 3D geometry is going to be taken care of automatically. Now, we do need to open this segment option and maybe add more segments, so the resolution, the render, is going to be higher. So let's just make it round and nice, 500, why not? And then I'll reduce the size so I can create something which looks, I think, better. So probably around 40, and then for the size X, 30. And this is something, again, as far as I know, it's very difficult to create it using built-in tools inside After Effects. So this is why I'm showing you another way to work. Now, I think I can even make it more nicer by closing a few of the things that I finished messing with, and show you that I can actually texture this guy. So I'll open up the textures, and this is the same method. So if you know one plugin, you already know where I'm taking it. I can take the color texture, for example, from the video that I have here. And because this is basically just wrapping the texture around the model, I can use the texture offset. So I'll click and start to drag until I see something which looks correct. Now, this is totally cheat. It's not real 360 HDR image. It's just something that we are using with 2D layers to create the illusion that this is really in the correct place. It's not in the correct place, but at least it reflects the correct thing. So I'll close the texture, I'll return back to the path from masks, and I just need to push it back to where it wants to be, because obviously this is just generating the 3D-ness in the middle, 3D-ness, I'm not sure if this is a word, in the middle of the screen. So I'm just going to drag it so it will be back to where it was before. And again, I'm eyeballing it for you because I don't want to be so, I don't know, predictable, compulsive. You will choose the word. So something along those lines, I think looks great, but you can, you can have it your way. And already this starts to look really impressive. However, we are missing the reflections. So just imagine, walk with me here, that we do have a dragon and a title floating above this cave. They should reflect in the water, right? So let's recreate these reflections. Let's tell Tao thank you and goodbye. Before we are going to thank Tao, let's open up the rendering and we'll do the same thing. We are going to make it render much nicer. Hopefully you can see this. If not, I'll zoom in, and now you can see this looks really nice. All right, so I'll close the plugin. I'll go now to Effect, and this time I'll visit the VFX category, and I'll choose Reflection, which is a 2D cheat again, but super cool to create reflections based on the layer upstairs in this case. So all I need to do is, let's just start from the beginning so it will be easier for me to show you, is take this and place it in this imaginary plane and just work with those start and end axis as well as the slant and height. I'm going to also create keyframes here to create something which looks correct. It's going to be better in a moment because I can change the opacity to, let's say, something else like 40, and I can also turn on the softness so it will look a little bit better. However, we are missing the nice refractions or caustics that we're seeing in the water. Not to worry. I mean, you can worry, but then, you know, stop worrying, because over here we have a displacement option. And for the displacement map, I can again select the same video that I used before, and this is going to serve as a displacement right after I start to move those horizontal and vertical sliders. So something along those lines. Hopefully you can see the contribution of it. So all I need to do right now is just animate those things, because these are not connected to the 3D object. This is just 2D stuff. So I'm moving 2 seconds ahead, and it's going to be very, very interesting, almost more interesting than to see paint dries. So yeah, you need to suffer now with me. We are going to just move this. It's not such a big deal. If you have something more important to do, this is your time for your second screen content, but I'm just trying to make it as less painful as possible. All right, so this is it. So now we have the reflection, which I think looks quite convincing. However, we also need to reflect the dragon. So we did all of the heavy lifting already. I'll make sure to select the reflection plugin. I'll go to Edit. I'll choose Copy. You can also do Command or Control C. I know you know this. I'll take the mirror layer. I'll place it underneath Tau. No, maybe above it, because I want the dragon to be above. And I'm just going to paste the same effect. And with any luck, you can see that we have a nice reflection of the dragon on top of the water, using all of the things that we worked so hard, or at least I worked so hard to achieve. So now I can just start to cache those files and see if this works for me or not. And we're going to wait for it for a few moments. And the reason that I'm rendering in front of you, one, is because I need to drink something, and two, is because I want you to see how fast it is. So this is actually something that you can work when the client is breathing behind your neck. This is why I love this so much. I also love the fact that we can see the dragon's tail just going outside of the comp. Let me just maximize the comp viewer so we can enjoy it, as well as press Shift and question mark to fit the viewer. So let's just take a look at it a few times. I think it looks decent, let's say good enough for government, but it's not the best in the world, right? So we need to make a few amendments and you know, try to see how we can make it better. And by better, I mean how to meld all the different elements together so they are going to look as convincing as possible. So what I'll do here is I'm going to use Supercomp. Now, in case you haven't heard about it, this is basically a software inside a software. So these days, both Cinema 4D and After Effects are actually a platform, so they are not only just software. They can run other applications inside, and you can do a lot of stuff using those tools that the main application can't do. This is the purpose of plugins. So plugins are not just like macros or actions. They can do other stuff that the applications can do. And this is why I just want to warn you what I'm going to do. So I'll select the layers that I want to take into this Supercomp environment by selecting this one, command clicking on the thou layer, and then the video layer underneath, which is the background. I'll go to Effect, and from the same category that I showed you before, I'll apply Supercomp. Now, if this is the first time you run Supercomp, it's coming as a floating window above everything, right? So you can either walk like this, or you can click and hold, and then just dock it into the interface. I'll make more room for it so we can see how this works. Of course, we can also give ourselves a little bit more room. And of course, it references all the layers. Now, the big deal with Supercomp is that it is aware of everything automatically. So you don't need to worry about creating pre-comps or hacking After Effects for it to work. Let me demonstrate what I'm actually referring to. I'll move my current time indicator to, let's say, over here, when we have a close-up of the dragon. And you can see the colors are not really matching between the original 3D model with its materials and the background. So obviously I've got tools inside After Effects which can help me. However, I can also click on this plus, and from this spiral wheel, I can select few things which are going to do the heavy lifting for me. One of them is the color correction tool. And again, I just want to show you, you have control for everything: saturation, exposure, temperature, tint, the 3 wheels, but this is the magic button. You can just click on match background, and it's just going to use this frame and calculate the correct atmosphere and move those wheels. Sorry, I'm just going to click it again because obviously I clicked somewhere else. And hopefully you can now see that now it looks much more in the same environment, so much more melted into the shot. And of course, this is sensitive. It's almost like parenting in After Effects. It's sensitive to where you click on it. So if I did the same thing over here, it's going to match it, and I just want to articulate it, it's going to match it differently. So now you can see my dragon is looking more in line with the beginning or the colors, or the average colors, I would say, of this composition, and this is just going to stick around. Obviously, we can keyframe stuff, but I just want you to be aware that this is sensitive to the place or the point that you clicked on it time-wise. Yes, there is a question. If I want to keyframe it, there are options to keyframe stuff. I'll get to it in a moment, but this is a great question. I'll give you also few minutes. I'll give you as many minutes as you want for Q&A at the end. But for now, I'll need to continue with my spiel. So I'll get to the keyframing in a moment. But I would like to go back to this place. And because it is changing basically the exposure, we should have a really, really apparent light wrapping around the dragon when it enters the cave. And again, it's a bit of a challenge to do this only with the built-in tools. But what I need to do right now is just return to the same menu, and I've got plenty of tools to choose from. I'll just use light wrapping, and automatically everything is going to be set up for me. Now, light wrapping is different than color correction, meaning that it is sampling the background every time. If I'll go over here, let's go over here, for example, you'll see I'm getting less light wrapping because it is not actually the render engine doesn't need to light wrap everything that it is seeing over here. So this is why I love Supercomp so much. It can save you so much time. And just I want to show you like the before and after. You've got these switches over here that you can turn on and off effects, or if you want the entire Supercomp layer, which is just a solid layer above everything. So let's not just be babies and satisfied with just 2 effects. Let's take it even more further. So I'll click on the DAO layer, and this one wants to have an optical glow. And of course, this is over the top, so I can reduce the amount. Let's go with 10, and probably the size can be as low as 5 or 3, something along those lines. Maybe 3 should be good enough. And again, I'm going to check it in few different places. Already, it looks much more believable. And the only thing I think I need to do here is to basically merge everything even better together. So this time I'm going to give a little bit love to the background layer by, again, clicking on this carousel, and I'll select the diffusion. which is almost like blurring everything according to what it sees in the upper level. So it's like an opposite way of blurring. And you can play with the density and the size. But I found out that leaving those things on their own with the default settings usually works best. Now, if we want to animate those stuff, there is a way to click on these things. Sorry, this is not the thing. This is the preset. So I just want to call out the fact that you can call some presets and check how this look with how this is going to look with a foggy background, for example, or ray or haze. And I really love the fact that all you need to do is just hover around those things, and this is it. But if you really want to keyframe this, then you can right-click, and then you can add a keyframe on the values itself. You can see that you can just click on it, and this means that it's going to create keyframes underneath the Supercomp, so you can, of course, ease them in the timeline. So it's a bit of a hidden feature, but just hover on top of it, and you will see it. And while I was talking, it's already finished to render the entire thing. The only thing which is missing, unfortunately, as far as I know, Mir and DAO doesn't support motion blur. So this is the only thing that we need to add as an addition step or addition move. So I'm just going to return to the effect controls. And what I'll do is go to the beginning. I'll make sure nothing is selected. So a quick keyboard shortcut for doing this is F2, which is working across the entire Adobe ecosystem. And then I'll go to the layer menu, and I'll create an adjustment layer. You can name your adjustment layers. I'm just going to name it Look, and doesn't have any relationship with Star Wars, just in case you are wondering. It's not even spelled the same way. And the first thing that I can do is and this is depending on what you have. So if you have access to this really, really cool tool, it's not from Maxon, but as you can see, they have it installed over here. It's the Revision plugin, Real Smart Motion Blur. This is the best synthetic motion blur in the business. However, if you can't reach your wallet and you want something free, then go under Time, and from the Time category, you have two options built into the application. This is a very good one, but it will bring your computer down on its knees. This is the CC Force Motion Blur. I'm just going to go with the Pixel Motion Blur, and I'm going to take the shutter samples maybe to 15. I'll move my current time indicator over here, and hopefully you can see that it's going to render motion blur after the fact. Now I can add additional motion blur if I want, so the bigger number I'm going to plug in, the more motion blur I will have. But this is just going to help smear all the elements together, and when you put it on top of everything, there you go. It's super easy. Now, on top of what we are seeing over here, we can do our final compositing effect. For example, we can go again to the effect menu, and I'm just going to use this single adjustment layer, but of course you can do separate adjustment layers for each one of them. And what I'm looking for is the magic bullet category, obviously, and there are two things that I always use. One of them is looks, the other one is renoiser. I'll start with looks, and again, remember that I told you that After Effects is a platform and it runs other applications inside. This is a great way to show you that I didn't lie. So if I'll go into the plugin and I'll move into the looks category, I can see that I have plenty of built-in looks to choose from. So I don't even need to understand how this works. I only need to know how to browse. If I'll, let's say, for example, click on this one, it will just populate everything underneath with all the tools. And of course, each one of these has its own controls that you can, fiddle with. It's not the look that I'm after. I'm just going to show you something which is relatively new with the latest release. And this is this strength option. So this one, if I'm going to take it and move it down, in the previous version, it actually didn't work as you expect. It worked more like an opacity slider. But right now, this is like a master controller that will allow you to change the opacity, I'm not sure if opacity is the right word, but the volume, I guess, of each and every one of these tools. So it works really nicely if you just arrive to a look that you're after and you just want to dial it up or down. The last thing that I'll do is back in the magic bullet category, which is a renoiser, right? And this is just to make sure that everything looks more connected, because we have synthetic elements from 3D which looks very sharp, very crisp. Sometimes they are going to flicker, and we are integrating them with video. So of course we have some motion blur and other stuff working along for us, working together for us, but it's always a good idea to add some noise. So grain or noise. You know the difference between grain and noise? So grain is for film, noise is for video. That's it. It's the same thing. So we actually need to call it video noise, but grain is what we're after. So you've got plenty of presets to choose from. Again, go ahead and test them so you can see. Hopefully this is like, you know, Super 8. It's too much for what I need. I'll stick with the modern master and maybe just raise the, I don't know, grain amount, let's say to 50. And you may or may not be able to see it through, obviously, the YouTube compression or what you are seeing on the projector. But trust me, it will add a nice layer that will melt everything together. And because I know your time is precious, I'm actually going to open the final version that I already rendered ahead of time. And I'll maximize the composition panel, and I'm just going to preview it so you can see how everything works in concert. And you must agree that with some very simple techniques and tools, we've managed to create a very convincing scene, almost with zero knowledge in 3D. So hopefully it was a fruitful experience. I want to show you a few more slides, and then we're going to separate. So first of all, thank you. Here is a great deal for you. Sign into my YouTube channel, like, subscribe, and I will deliver every week a new tutorial. You can't argue with free stuff, right? If you want access to everything I did, you can scan this QR code, and you have more than 30 full-length courses on my website. So go ahead, use and abuse. Thank you so much. I'm sticking here for questions. So,
yeah. All right. Do we have any questions for Eran? I think you did it. I think you were thorough again.
Yeah.
That was the problem. You just actually explained everything so well that they just get it, and that happens sometime. Awesome. Well, if you do have more questions, Ron, you're going to be here tomorrow, right?
I am.
We have another
presentation.
New presentation tomorrow. So check them out. Then, as well as stay tuned, because after our next press, we have 2 more presenters. So we have 2 more presenters after this. So stay tuned, and we'll catch you after this, Internet. See you then.